G'day, Chief. Welcome to the Inner Chief podcast and this special episode, which we call the Mini Chief. These are short, sharp highlights from our fabulous CEO guests, where you get a 5 to 10 minute snapshot of the highlights from their episode. Righto, Chief. Without further ado, here is the Mini Chief episode for this week with Cliff Gale, former Managing Director of Light and Easy. Cliff, one thing you talk about is almost that you embraced emotion within Light and Easy, and I think that's really important because a lot of organisations now, they've lost their soul, and you mentioned this to me on a previous occasion. How did you keep the soul of the organisation intact as it grew? And it's a bit of a question that came from Sarah Chamberlain, who was a previous guest as well and founder of the Real Estate Stylist. She said this: how did you manage culture when the size of the company outgrew your personal sphere of influence? How did you keep the soul?
Philosophically, what I tried to do, I tried to have a philosophy that run the business like it was when we started on day one. And that might sound very simplistic and very difficult to do, but I always thought that it was best to continue with that intent all the time. My wife, Jane, would say to me, she'd say, look, you can't do that anymore, Cliff. You're going to start struggling to remember everybody's name that works for you. And I said, well, if I can keep trying, and occasionally I'll say, oh, look, I forgot your name or whatever, if I was talking to people. I was a very personal part of the business. When I was there, people knew I was there. People, I'd like to think a lot of people had good reflections of me when I was involved in the business. The soul of the business was maintained because I drove the culture of the business so passionately. If there was an issue with culture, if there was an issue with these people in the business not getting along with these people, I wanted to create the solution. I wanted to get to the core of the problem. We would have issues within our call centre from time to time, and I'd say, no, that's not the way a call centre runs. Our call centre, it's got to run emotively. It's got to run fluidly. Now, in this day and age with, with the web and whatever, where, as time started to fall away, we didn't have anywhere near as many calls as what used to, but we still had an enormous amount of calls. The soul of the business was just everything for me. The business had to have soul. People had to identify that. I wanted people to identify that I was there and I passionately drove the business. Look, and tell one story. I remember one day I was walking around and I was very cranky, at the risk of saying I was very shitty. And this person that I knew them very well in the business, they said, what's wrong with you? And I told them that we'd had a particular problem in the business. And I said, I'm very sorry if I'm sort of coming across really, really cranky. And she said to me, Cliff, she said, that's what we sort of love about you here, because you show your passion, and we know if you're unhappy about something in the business, it's only your passion to have the business going well all the time. It was.
She wanted to see that emotion.
She was happy to see that emotion. She said, because we don't see it all the time, it's great when, also when we see you like that, it makes you feel like you care. You care about the business and you care about us. And I said, well, I'm glad you said that, because I do. That's it. I'm so passionate about the business. I was so focused on making the business successful, and I was never focused on the profit of the business. The business was a very profitable business, but I knew that if we got all the blocks in place, that the outcome would be profit. So I never had to worry about that at all. And it was much more fun running the business by just being able to do things properly, and for me to be myself there. I prided myself on the fact that I really carried myself very similarly in my workplace as I did out of my workplace. I didn't have a suit. I never wore a suit at work anyway, but I never felt like I put a suit on when I walked in the door. I never wanted to be seen like that, and I don't believe I was ever seen by that either. I was just Cliff, and I was seen to be the driver of the business. Yeah.
Now, you had some very important people that worked for you over the years, and you mentioned someone to me in a previous discussion, which was your general manager. And there's a few philosophies that I know you hold dear, and one of them is the ability to free people, I suppose, and delegate, but then let them be who they're going to be and give them the free rein to do what they've got to do. Can you tell us a bit more about your approach to that?
Julie, she was a very interesting person. She was the one that I interviewed in the study of my home. She probably encapsulated just about everything in terms of the business. I couldn't have hoped for having a better business relationship with somebody. She was there from the start. She was there to literally the finish of the business. She taught me how important it was, or less probably the value of just being myself there. We would sometimes have very, very tough days there, and I would walk out at the end of the day and just say thank you to her. And one day we were chatting away and we were talking about different things, and I think even her wages came up. It was always me that brought up wages too, it wasn't her. She said to me, Cliff, you pay me enough. By you thanking me, and when I see the look in your eyes when you thank me at the end of a tough day, some days that's everything for me. You pay me a fair amount of money, anyway. She did pull me up another time, and she said to me, and I'm probably talking a tiny bit out of school here, but she told me I was paying her too much. And she was very, very passionate because she'd had a little bit of a profit share in the business, because the business had grown so rapidly that she was paying it. And ultimately, we rejigged her wage for her to not be earning less, but probably her future growth in her wages to be not at the same rate as what they were. Now, I only tell that story to give you an idea about if you employ good people, you give them good ownership of their roles, and you genuinely empower them and want them to be successful in their role. I guess what will come back to you by doing that. When I reflected on having this chat to Greg, I sometimes struggled and think, what did I do in that business? And a lot of it was just about how I handled the people there. Yeah, we had technical, we had a completely different business. I went from car tyres to food, and I went from predominantly employing men to predominantly employing women. But I learned very, very quickly, because people would ask me how that transition went. And I would say, well, the core principles of people management are no different, apart from one's a male and one's a female. The transition from tyres to food and delivering food, et cetera, that was just technical stuff. That's the way I looked at it. That was only the technical stuff. The technical stuff I could learn, but the people management was probably a skill that I just kept carrying forward all the time.
I think you make a very important point there, Cliff, and it's just one around pure recognition. It's one thing I find in the big corporate world, where so many people feel like their careers are, maybe even soul-destroying, or they don't have that sense of emotion you spoke about, or the passion. And perhaps it's because they're not being recognised. And if you have people that report to you, then that's a wonderful thing you can do, is just a real heartfelt thank you for the fact they turn up, 48, 50 weeks a year and give 5 days a week to the business, to the cause. And have you really thanked them for that, other than through the wage, right?
Yeah, we had to pay people the right amount of money. That was the core. I learnt that as well. You had to make sure you're paying people a fair and reasonable amount for the role they did. But I learnt this emphatically, that a lot of why people continued to work for you and wanted to do the right thing by you, and I guess that was something that I always felt a lot of people really wanted to do the right thing by me, was because I treated them with respect in the business.
Chief, there you have it for this week with our mini Chief episode. All the links and resources can be found at chiefmaker.com/337. And if you'd like to stay in touch with Chiefmaker, just go to chiefmaker.com/subscribe. Now, Chief, are you working your tail off, doing everything you can to be the best professional, but still finding perhaps you're not getting in front and you just don't know why? You're not sure if it's a relationship with your boss that's costing you, maybe your routines or your processes. Maybe you don't have the right network or the right skills, or maybe you just don't have the right track record in place. Whatever it is, sometimes it's hard to know what exactly might be costing you a promotion and mastery at work. So what I've done is created for you the Chief Maker Career Scorecard. It's a 25-question survey that gives you a free automated report about your precise situation. I'll tell you exactly what you need to do in order to get ahead and design a roadmap for your dream job and life. As I said, it's totally free. I've automated the whole process so anybody can do it in just a couple of minutes. Just go to chiefmaker.com/scorecard. Righto, Chief. As always, remember to stay happy.